Okay, so to start off, I um the main point of my paper, the question at hand is what is the interpretation of censorship? And basically how do Aputerai and the public sphere and Idioscape all fit in to that topic? So to start off, just some things that were gathered throughout the paper about censorship is governments use legal action against social media companies to suppress criticism and free speech. Censorship actions are primarily directed at political activism related um content. So, for example, like it says favoring opposition politicians. Um that means like for example, President Trump and President Biden are in a presidential race and they claim that one of um the president said something that they didn't, or something that they did, but they didn't want the public to hear it, they would censor it, meaning like take it away from the public, not letting the public view what actually was said or something that was done. And most of the time, censorship is used in political driven events. So during like, for example, COVID, the presidential election, things like that. Governments impose social media censorship, restrict citizens' freedom of speech and idea exchange, influencing public opinion, impeding on democratic process. Next page here. It is not letting me go to the next page. That is weird. There we go. Understanding censorship impact on global communication. So the public sphere and Idioscape interact as forums for discussion and debate. Government-imposed social media censorship restricts citizens' freedom of speech and idea exchange, influencing public opinion and impeding democracy. Puterai's theory of idioscapes and Giorgio's analytical framework provide insights into censorship ramifications, what censorship is all about. Censorship intersects with cross-border information, transmission influencing media landscapes, democratic norms, and cultural expression. So most of the time, censorship isn't only just happening in your country, it is happening all over the world. It's happening in foreign countries like North Korea and Russia and China. It's happening in Canada, and it's even happening here in the United States. Just some people may not see it as strong as it's being um presented in other countries. Let's see. There we go. Why this case is so important. So, this case is important because it can shed light on the intricate connections between global communication networks, governmental regulation, and media freedom. This case study is significant by analyzing how these news outlets overcome censorship barriers while upholding journalistic ethics and integrity. So we throughout this paper we studied the New York Times, many articles from the New York Times and many articles from BBC News, which are worldly news. They don't really favor one side. So that's where that journalistic ethics and integrity is throughout the research throughout this paper. We can gain more insight into the broader socio-political forces shaping media landscapes around the world. The ultimate objective of this study is to further the scholarly discourse regarding media censorship and regulation, as well as the consequences these practices have for international communication, democracy, and for overall human rights. What we found in one of our articles. So in the article about North Korea, it discusses North Korea's censorship of Alan Titchmarsh's pants. It highlights censorship as a response to a movement losing its fight for hearts and minds. It compares censorship measures across news organizations like BBC News and the New York Times. It identifies all the difference in censoring laws, enforcement techniques, and impacts of free speech and media. highlights evolving dynamics of information control in modern media efforts environments. Censorship is different everywhere. So some countries will completely not let you use the internet, and some countries will let you use the internet and have some things blocked off for the public that they just don't want you knowing. News In the new censorship article, we found that there was a very big increase attempt to ban books in the US in 2021. 2021 was a very tough time for the US. It was a pandemic time, a lot of political argument going on around there. So trying to block a lot of information. Censorship often occurs through legal means, influenced by conservative legislators to shape public opinion. Acts of censorship often disguise weakness as strength. That is actually one of Aputurai's quotes from his book. North Korea's dress regulation differs from conservative lawmakers' scheduled methods. State authority and ideological control interplay in shaping idioscapes. And North Korea's leadership relies on direct control over media and cultural expression. Continued. As stated in the new censorship article, across the United States, parents have demanded more oversight over curriculums, and school board meetings have erupted into fiery discussions. This paragraph illustrates how public opinion and action influence debates about censorship in democracies and how the idioscape serves as a battleground for opposing ideologies. Each of these works adds to our understanding of the different ways that state power, censorship and ideological dominance interact to shape the idioscape and influence the overall public sphere. Go in here. Aputuri's book. So this is what we just actually mentioned in the last slide. Aputuri's idioscape theory explains international censorship. The idioscape is a metaphor for the cross-border movement of concepts, images, and ideologies. Censorship involves suppression of information with national borders and global control of idea flow. Aputuri's view in the global cultural economy is a complex overlapping order. Censorship impacts cultural interconnection and the interaction of the idioscape with the global sphere. Censorship is constantly changing, taking on new forms and ways that it may come into the world. A big part of censorship, like I mentioned earlier, is when there is a political agenda or something that the country doesn't want you knowing. So that's when you see censorship involve itself in certain countries, is when they feel there's a need for it. You may not always see it every single day, but around certain events around the world, it will find its way to make a play into the world. So throughout this research paper, there were some reoccurring themes, and here they are. Governments are enacting laws to combat hate speech and political opposition as seen in Canada and Russia. These initiatives raise debates on the balance between protecting free speech and preventing harm. Tech companies advocate for internet user protection, but concerns about fines and regulation highlight the challenge of enforcing internet laws. Censorship is public education, raises ideological control and suppression of the intellectual diversity, especially in debates on race, gender, and sexual orientation. So there's some more examples of where censorship could apply. How it all comes together. When connecting this, Aputurai and Giorgio both provide insightful viewpoints on how censorship is seen. While Giorgio's analysis highlights the role of media diversity and the importance of media literacy in countering censorship and promoting democratic participation, Aputurai's concept of idioscape is the worldwide parameter of ideologies and ideas that transcend national boundaries through the media. Technology and cross-cultural interchange is known as the idioscape, according to Aputurai. It includes the international exchange of narratives, images, symbols, and values that impact people's perceptions and socio-political dynamics. And here are my citations. Thank you.